اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So inshallah we're going to continue with our book on Shamail. We're in chapter 13 now. So if we're going to put the date and the title as the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam cushions and how he reclined. So the first is from Abu Bakr, who said, the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Shall I not inform you about the greatest enormities?" They replied, "Certainly, O Messenger of Allah." He replied, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, "Associating partners with Allah and insolence to one's parents." The Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then sat up as he had been reclining and said, "And false testimony." The Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam kept on saying this so much so that we said to ourselves, if only he would be quiet. So this is a very important hadith because it starts with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioning that whilst he was reclining, sitting down in a relaxed posture, he asked the companions who were present at that time, he said, "Shall I inform you of something great enormity, something very important, something very serious?" And they replied, "Certainly." So the first thing he said is to associate partners with Allah. So that means that's part of our belief. We don't want to associate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has any partner. He doesn't have any children. He's not born of anyone. He doesn't have any nemesis like good versus evil kind of thing, where we don't say Allah is good and evil is on his own entity, or he doesn't have any sort of any helpers or anything like that. Allah is completely and totally independent, and everything happens by the will of Allah, by the knowledge of Allah. So it's very important to clearly understand that whatever is happening out there is happening because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has will for that to happen, and it's all in His knowledge. Everything that's happened in the past, everything that's happening now, and anything that will happen in the future. The next one is being insolent to one's parents. So that's being disobedience, being in any way bad towards one's parents. That's through words or through expressions, or may Allah forgive us, even physical sort of harm or anything like that. So we should always remember that you should talk to your parents or with your parents in a polite manner, not in a rude manner, or don't get angry with them and express your anger. Don't say anything towards them, and don't mention them about your parents in any bad way or anything like that. In the Quran it's mentioned that in one of the verses that do not even say oof, and that is like the least way of showing, you could say, that is the least way of showing your negative emotion towards parents. So if you can't even say oof, then you could imagine that we don't use any kind of, definitely not swearing, and make sure that you call your parents with adab and respect, in terms of not calling them by their name or anything like that, or when you're making reference towards your parents as well. And make sure that you always have the highest form of respect towards your parents, because keeping them happy and keeping them pleased with yourself, then it's a great blessing. Then also it pleases something that is rewarding, and it will help you towards becoming a better Muslim. The next one is mentioned that, and false testimony. So false testimony is where somebody swears by the Quran or swears by in the name of Allah, and they're giving a testimony towards anything which is a lie. So that is a very bad thing to do. You should never do that, whether whilst you're at school or anywhere. If you know somebody has done something bad or something wrong, or somebody was there, and then don't make false testimony to save them, even though you might be thinking that he's my friend or he's my brother or something like that. You should never make false testimony. That is a very grievous thing to do. So the next is from Abu Juhayfa, who said, the Messenger of Allah said, "As for me, I do not eat reclining." So whilst Prophet mentioned that whilst you're eating food, you shouldn't recline or rest towards anything. Prophet, he would normally, his habit was to sit on the floor and eat, and So we can sit on the chair and eat, that's fine. On the table, that's fine. That's fine, nothing wrong with that. But whilst eating, you shouldn't recline or rest your shoulder, your arm, or anything like that. That's very bad adab or bad manners. Jabir ibn Samura said, as for the Messenger of Allah ﷺ reclining on a cushion. So cushion in those days, Prophet ﷺ, it was considered something like a luxurious item. It was made of leather. It was made of leather, and the inside of it was of dry palm fiber. That's how it was normally made of, and it was something that was used for when to sit on. When especially when a guest or somebody came, and as I mentioned, I think in the chivalry class, one of the way of being hospitable towards somebody, if they come to your house, then you should offer them to sit comfortably. And in those days, they would offer the cushion to sit on, and that was a sign of showing hospitality. Nowadays, we probably have sofas and chairs, but in those days, they didn't have that type of furniture. It was mainly cushions that they would use, which was on the floor. Al-Fadl ibn Abbas said, I visited the Messenger of Allah ﷺ during his illness, in which he passed away, and he had on his head a yellow bandage or a turban. I greeted him, and he replied, O Fadl, I said, at your service, O Messenger of Allah ﷺ. He replied, tie this bandage on my head. So I did. He then sat up and placed his arm on my shoulder. Then he got up and entered the masjid. So this is towards the end of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, when he was really ill. So he was asking if Al-Fadl, who was the older brother of Abdullah ibn Abbas. So he was the elder son of Abbas, who was the uncle of Prophet ﷺ. So he was, when he visited him, he asked him to help him to get up and to tie a bandage around his head, and to help him walk to the masjid. And he was using Al-Fadl as a support as well. So that goes to show how you could say at that time Prophet ﷺ, he knew how ill and how weak he was at that time. A couple of things with regards to sitting. When somebody comes to your house, then you should offer them a place to sit. So nowadays, like I said, it could be chair or a sofa, or in those days it was cushion. If you have a cushion where you sit on the floor, then you offer it to them. And one of the etiquettes of sitting is if you go to somebody's house, that's you or the visitor, then make sure that you don't go and sit at the best place in the dwelling. You should wait for the host of the house to sort of indicate where for you to go and sit down. So these are some of the manners and etiquettes that we should try and learn as well. So, and the other thing is with the cushions or things like that as well, you should show respect towards them. And like, for instance, you shouldn't put your dirty shoes. You shouldn't be wearing shoes in the house anyway. But if you have socks, and make sure that they're clean, they're not dirty, and they're not smelly. If they are, then take them off and put them in wash. And make sure that you don't place them on the cushion, because other people might be sitting on them or might be using them to lie on them. So it's very important that you be very cautious about that. So inshallah, we're going to stop with that, and so may Allah give us the tawfiq to act upon the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and to imbibe the good mannerism into our lives. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.